It's debt, this destruction.
Global news impacts us.
We have to change the way we live.
This is why we need independent media.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kit Cabello. I'm joined today with my co-host, Daniel Lupker. Also manning the board is our tech priest insincere phase. This is the Friday episode of Hard Lens Media. We hope all of you are safe, especially a huge shout out to all of our people in the Midwest. It's pretty cold outside, Dan.
Pretty cold.
Yeah, I know.
My skin's getting super dry.
Yeah, but nonetheless, we hope all of you are safe and warm. And again, if you could help out any which way too for your community, please do so, because it's pretty tough for a lot of people out there right now. We also want to acknowledge that we are so grateful and thankful that all of you are so faithful to us for joining us here at Hardlens Media. We are live every Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. We are live on our Rockafin channel every Monday and Wednesday at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. We got our fun channel, Chicago Reacts. Join our Discord. Also, be sure to follow us on Twitter. And if you support independent media and want to help out Hardlens Media, please consider being a Patreon supporter. In fact, we have a brand new Patreon supporter that we want to acknowledge right now. Shout out to, let me get their name right, Emily. That's it. That's all her name. Emily, $1 per month. Thank you so much for being a Patreon supporter. And we know times are tough for people. If you can't become a Patreon supporter, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and share our content on social media. It really helps us out. The YouTube censorship is real, and it's impacting a lot of content creators. And, you know, now more than ever, we truly do need independent media.
And also, definitely, if you want, I know a lot of people, because of everything that's happening on YouTube, are thinking of moving over to Rockfin. If you want to support us on Rockfin, when you sign up for Rockfin, just make sure to tag Hardlens Media as the reason you joined, and then you get to see a lot of our extra content there.
Yes, and plus I get to swear more, so it'll be a lot more fun. So, but with that being said, drink. I also want to acknowledge some of our awesome Patreon supporters here that are on this awesome list of heroic heroes operating Hardlens Media for 3 hours per month. Shout out to David Pearson, Mitchell Hellett, Wayne Kotz, no more donations. Awesome guy. Derek Daniels, Mallory Bolik, Lori Babaganoush. Good name. Lizzie Girl's mom, Todd Jersey, John Sutter, Kate and Nick. Well, Kate and Nick, aren't you guys lovely? Tommy Kelly, Arnuff, and Barney Rubble. You guys are honorary Patreon supporters. And again, all of you, please be safe out there. We do wish everyone to be safe. There's still a pandemic, and just wash your hands, wear a mask, and take good care of yourselves. But let's get started with our first segment. I want to give a shout out to our wonderful moderator and writer as well, Ali Alexandria. She recently reached out to me and brought this to my attention about this article that came out from the New York Times, and it's titled "How the Biden Administration Can Help Solve Our Reality Crisis." And she decided to look into it and highlight some key points about really, are we walking into 1984, Daniel?
I think we're running.
Oh, okay, walking, running. Hey, you know what? Like CNN, we'll let you decide.
Let's say jogging. How's that sound?
You know,
everyone's happy.
Everyone's happy. All right. Well, let's find out what exactly is going on. And again, you could find all the links to our show notes, find all the links to our articles and videos in our show notes and description box below. So again, this article is written by Ali Alexandria, and where she basically starts looking at the different points of this article from the New York Times that came out on February 2nd. So here's an excerpt from the article from the New York Times. The muddled, chaotic information ecosystem that produces these misguided beliefs doesn't just jeopardize some lofty ideal of national unity. It actively exacerbates our biggest national problems and creates more work for those trying to solve them. And it raises an important question for the Biden administration. How do you unite a country in which millions of people have chosen to create their own version of reality? Well, when your government abandons you and treats you like crap and doesn't give you any kind of bailouts or no social safety nets, I think the options are limited. I don't know. We'll let you decide. In the past year alone, we've seen conspiracy theorists cause COVID-19 vaccine delays, sabotage a wildfire response, and engineer a false election fraud narrative. We have also seen that if left unchecked, network conspiracy theories, online disinformation campaigns can lead to offline violence, as they did during the last month's deadly Capitol riot. Gee, I guess they're not going to bring up the fact that corporate media screwed up weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, Russiagate, or the fact that there was election fraud during the Democratic primary in 2016 and 2020. But again, corporate media, they have their own point of view. I spent the last several years reporting on our national reality crisis, and I worry that unless the Biden administration treats conspiracy theories and disinformation as urgent threats, our parallel universes will only drift further apart, and the potential for violent unrest and civic dysfunction will only grow. So I called a number of experts and asked what the Biden administration could do to help fix our truth-challenged information ecosystem. He put too many words in this, buddy, but I get it. I like it. Or at least prevent it from getting worse. Here's what they told me. And Ali highlighted some points here. Again, shout out to Ali Alexandria. You be sure to follow her Substack articles. Number one, set up a 9/11 Truth Commission. Oh boy. That sounds fun. Are we getting a 9/11 Truth Commission gang back together? John Donovan, a researcher of Harvard University's Shorenstein Center on Media, Politics, and Public Policy, suggested that the Biden administration could set up a Truth Commission similar to the 9/11 Commission to investigate the planning and execution of the Capitol siege on January 6th. This effort, she said, would ideally be led by people with deep knowledge of the many network factions that coordinate and carried out the riot, including white supremacist groups and far-right militias. Also, maybe this is also a chance to infiltrate Black Lives Matter groups, Medicare for All groups.
Tell people how to think about those groups.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like the Ministry of Truth, 1984. Whew. 2, you're all going to love this. Create a reality czar. Oh my God. Because this always leads somewhere good, right? And that's Allie's comments right there. Several experts I spoke with recommended the Biden administration put together a cross-agency task force to tackle disinformation, domestic extremism, which would be led by something like a reality czar. For example, it could formulate safe harbor exemptions that will allow platforms to share data about QAnon and other conspiracy theory communities with researchers and government agencies without running afoul of privacy laws. 3, get a black box. Something tells me we've already gone over this topic in Congress. Several experts recommended that the Biden administration push for much more transparency into inner workings of the black box algorithm that Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and other platforms use to rank feeds, recommend content, and usher users into private groups, many of which have been responsible for amplifying conspiracy theories and extremist views. Number 4, implement social stimulus program. Clearly, there's a public safety issue, but there's also very much a public health issue, said Mika Clark, a program director at Moonshine CVE, a counter-extremism firm in London. One effective countermeasure, Mr. Clark suggested, could be a kind of social stimulus, a series of federal programs to encourage people to get off their screens and into community-based activities that can keep them engaged and occupied. Well,
I think Jen is doing that.
Yeah, but also, here's the thing. We're dealing with the pandemic, so people really can't get out of their homes or leave their computers because no one wants to get the virus. Knee-jerk legislative actions formulated to address long-standing societal problems rarely fix the root of the problem. I say this is no different. Call me crazy, but I'm skeptical of the Biden administration providing any transparency under task forces created to minimize disinformation on the internet. Moreover, I'm suspicious of any expert who suggests that the government should create safe harbor exemptions that allow the government to access otherwise private data to find out specific names of people and their behavioral activity on the internet. Lastly, I like to address the snitch culture reemergence we're seeing. We don't need to glorify this McCarthy-style snitch culture that I'm seeing on a large scale. Why should I believe the government will stop with QAnon affiliates? I don't need members of the United States Congress having their teams send out emails with calls to report specific social media accounts based on subjective and generalized interpretations of someone's intentions when posting information. We already have big tech doing that. I'm talking to you, AOC. A friend of mine posted his email from Team AOC that he received the other day. And these 2 paragraphs that I read are from Ali Alexandria. And again, let's actually focus on this. This is a image that's been shared on social media with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez basically talking about right-wing operatives and millions of followers on social media are spreading out flat-out lies and misinformation. And, I'm a little worried about this thing because what AOC has sent out in many ways looks like the beginning of thought police, political police. And look, my concern is, okay, let's say the Democrats implement this. Let's say the Republicans, I don't know, in some scenario, get more power in the Senate, House, or maybe the presidency.
Which is always how it happens.
They could easily abuse this and then go after progressives and independents further. Again, Ali Alexandria writes, now this is her original content right here. Big tech censorship is a problem. I've watched countless friends get silenced and demonetized over the last 2 years. Yeah, I agree, Ali. On both the right and the left. Something needs to change. But I have a hard time believing anything done under the federal government will result in more transparency. Even Jake Tapper agrees, referencing the Obama administration, one that took advantage of the Espionage Act to silence whistleblowers and journalists more than any other president combined. Joe Biden ran on collective accomplishments from the Obama administration, one that he's proud to have been part of, which is perfectly fine, by the way. But based on the Obama administration's track record, it's hard for me to think a Biden administration would have a different approach to handling information online through cooperative cooperative measures with big tech. Government and big tech already know each other very well. I'm curious to hear what all of you think about this issue. Am I being too cynical, or does the thought of a reality czar seem a bit too dystopian? Should I give Biden's approach to handling online radicalization a chance? Till next time, Ali Alexandria. Again, Ali, fantastic writing, well done. But I think there's a bigger issue, and also I want to give an update, just in regards to this. They're still talking about this, so nothing has been effectively implemented. But the very fact that there are people reaching out to the Biden administration right now as we speak, talking about this, the entire social media platform can be changed forever. And it's going to silence a lot of content creators. And it just won't go after independent media. It's going to go after people who cover different subjects and genres. Daniel.
So first and foremost, I obviously want to bow my head to AOC, who is in chat with us. But besides that, please don't damage our channel. So this is something that you were talking about in the article, very importantly, that a lot of the things that we're talking about are issues that have been building and building and building and building, and much of the government is just knee-jerk reacting to stuff that's already been an issue for a very long time. So have there been has there been destruction of channels? Like, it's funny, we're talking about, like, back then it's book burning, it's just burning books that aren't good or approved, and now it's burning down channels with thousands of hours and thousands of subscribers that aren't acceptable anymore. It's just a different, history doesn't repeat itself, but it sure as hell rhymes. And what are we doing here? And it's crazy, because it's like, there's a huge amount of people we're talking about, and we have a story coming up, we're going to talk about it more, that have been just pounded and destroyed by having demonetization pulled out of their channels in a capitalist market, which is basically a death knell if you can't get that back or find another way of funding your work. That's an issue. And, like, obviously, we got taken down back last year and at the beginning of the year during the pandemic, and we were taken down effectively because the YouTube algorithm said you're not supposed to be talking about COVID at a time when it was new, and only authentic, pre-registered journalistic organizations are allowed to talk about it. And if you guys remember, that was also a push made by the Democratic Party. Remember, because it's specifically COVID, and everyone's like, oh my God, there's all these QAnoners out there, and they're not telling the truth about what's happening, and we're getting misinformation. Everyone, remember that? That was the Democrats freaking out about that, not Republicans. Ironically, Trump did not cause a large exodus of channels on YouTube. It was still the Democrats. So the same Democrats that screwed us over when they weren't in power fully are now in power now, and we already see the difference in the amount of people that are taken down and out. So I just want to say that this is a real worry. I don't want a ministry of truth, and I don't want to have the channel be threatened because we have a ton of videos saying Biden said $2,000 per month. A lot of vans that had billboards on them that said $2,000 a month. A lot of people who were promised $2,000 a month, and it turns out that really just means $1,400. That's the sort of stuff I worry about, because we're already seeing that. What we're also already seeing in a lot of content is, like, if you see a thing that has, like, Joe Biden's name in it, I'm actually going to check right now to see if it'll. Okay, it does. I don't think it popped up for us on this one, but it'll have a thing that's like, Joe Biden is the president. We want to let you know that. So it's just going to be a lot more of that. And then it's going to, of course, get worse. And then there's going to be more outreach. There's going to be more, and there's going to be more, and there's going to be more, and there's going to be more, because scope creep is really always the biggest threat. And the same reason why a lot of people, when these things first start happening, like when we talk about censorship, we're consistent. We talk about it in the same way that we do now as we did a couple of years ago. Whereas a lot of people now are like, oh, all of a sudden, oh my God, the censorship's a big deal and a big issue, but they didn't before when it didn't affect them. So, yeah.
I think as a final note to the story, again, shout out to Ali Alexandria, who took apart that New York Times article. We cannot be for censorship, and we cannot have a presidential administration, a Congress, a House and Senate in a super fast rush to deem and tell people what is reality and what is not, because we can't forget that corporate media for a long time was giving us false narratives. For example, the war in Iraq, Russiagate, ignoring the fact that there was election fraud during the 2016 Democratic primary primary or the Democratic primary in 2020. And there's so many other numerous issues where corporate media has dropped the ball. We must not forget that corporate media is owned by the top 1% and is in their best interest to basically earn profit. The American people are not being informed about the corruption that's happening, the inept leadership that we're seeing in Washington, D.C., how the top 1% keep on dictating the rules while the rest of us are left holding the bag. We need to protect free speech, but also we cannot have a democracy, a republic, start dictating what we can and cannot talk about, because that's going to get dangerously close to infringing into our privacy, into our lives, and everyone's going to be on the chopping block, just not people you hate either. It's going to be everyone. This is why I am for free speech, and this is why all of us should be very concerned about this. Again, shout out to Ali Alexandria. You can find her article in our show notes. But with that being said, go ahead, Daniel, with the final note.
And something else to think about if you're not convinced on the whole Democrats are usually the culprits on this thing. Well, imagine what happens when you put all this in place, and in 2022, Republicans take over the House. Think of it that way if you need to.
Yeah. All right, we are going to move on, but before we do, I want to acknowledge a YouTube super chat from Sports Dropping. Only in America do we implore a president ran out of his first primary for lying and plagiarism to declare a truce ministry. Oh,
that's
that
a
is
great point.
good. Also, real quick, I want to acknowledge something that was sent to me by AOC, and she said to me this. Hang on, let me see if I can find it. Kit Cabello, want to join me and sell out? I don't like what you're saying. We can pay you. No. Can we get the camera on me? No. I am loyal to the people, to independent media, to free speech, and to the God Emperor of mankind.
Waiting for that.
I knew you would. I knew that.
I know you could. And we got one more super chat.
We do. Awesome. Shout out to Roger Meadows. I imagine AOC as Ivan Drago saying, I must break you. Yes. Well, I don't know. We'll see. But I hope AOC got my message. Shout out
AOC,
to
all violence is my violence.
And AOC is like, oh, come on, Kit Cabello. I don't know who that is. But with that being said,
I think it's AOC.
Daniel, you got a story for the people.
She's going through, checking all the news, making sure it's appropriate.
Yeah, true. All right.
Yeah.
But you got a story for the people.
Yeah.
What is going on?
Okay, so I found this very interesting video from our good friend, Case Study QB, and this is about the Democratic and Republican parties that are under this process of reshuffling. And I don't mean like shuffling like in the 60s. I mean like shuffling like what I was describing would happen back in our very early radio days in 2016 when Trump first got in. If you go far enough back on our Facebook page to find those, you'll see me saying my big expectation of Trump in the long term is that he breaks the base in half and splits off. If you know Rules for Rulers and you've seen it, which you should see it already if you haven't, the Republican Party has three main bases. It is the wealthy business and people that think that they're wealthy business, the people that are just temporarily embarrassed millionaires, those people group. And then you have evangelical religious group. And then you have sort of the catch-all that has people that watch reality TV, people that liked Trump when he was, on The Apprentice, things of that nature. And then, your I won't use the word Hillary used, but, every group has them. And Trump has successfully and completely separated the religious and the business from that other group, which is, of course, causing massive chaos within the Republican Party, and that's why we're having all these different people running. But there's a legitimate split, as if they're moving in two different directions with, who knows if they get that back. If Trump gets his newspaper or his news station with Newsmax or whoever else, or Sinclair, whatever it is, that's going to further this, because you're going to have your Fox News Republicans and you're going to have your others. So the thing that would be nice to have is then the Republican Party would be even weaker. Of course, the Democrats wouldn't be left out in that sort of failure. So we have a couple of videos we're going to play, and we're going to go over them in this sort of context.
Media returns to again and again when people aligned with their side do something indefensible, which is to point to something else and say, well, hey, what about that? All the time. For example, when a Republican president whipped up and incited a mob of insurrectionists, and then those insurrectionists attacked the U.S. Capitol in violent pursuit of overturning a legitimate election, the right-wing media just went to the old playbook, and instead of reckoning with what had happened, what their side had done, it was like, what about Antifa?
Isn't that funny that he's talking about the Republicans in that way? He's like, man, those Republicans have no idea to reconcile the issues and the issues within their party and the split between their bases. I don't know how they're not able to figure that out. We and the Democrats, on the other hand, have it figured out. And if you disagree, the Ministry of Truth is going to come after you.
The political police.
They are now doing this again, predictably, again with Marjorie Taylor Greene, a member of Congress who has literally signaled support for the murder of Democratic lawmakers. I mean, I think she says that it was someone managing her page, but that's like what happened. So this was Fox News today, the network suggesting a double standard in the treatment of Greene and Democratic Representative Ilhan Omar, someone who does not, for the record, have public support for killing her fellow lawmakers. House Republicans are using the same tactic as their media allies. So this afternoon, in response, Congresswoman Omar released a statement that reads in part, quote, "Let's be clear, this is a desperate smear rooted in racism, misogyny, and Islamophobia. The House Republican caucus, instead of holding her accountable, is now fanning the flames. Republicans will do anything to distract from the fact they have not only allowed but elevated members of their own caucus who encourage violence. It's time to stop whitewashing the actions of the violent conspiracy theorists who pose a direct and immediate threat to their fellow members of Congress and our most fundamental democratic processes." And joining me now for her first interview on all this is Democratic Representative Ilhan Omar of Minnesota. Representative Congresswoman, did you expect that you would be pulled into this because you have become kind of a go-to figure in these moments for the Republican Party?
Sadly, this is the Republican playbook. We saw it with Donald Trump that anytime they are faced with consequences for their actions to undermine our democracy, they blame Muslims, they blame immigrants, they blame Black people, they blame women. I just happen to embody all of these identities. And I just want to make sure, Chris, that we are clear on this. This is not about me, and it should not be about me. This is about a member of the Republican caucus who has repeatedly.
Can we pause for just one? Oh, yeah, good. Perfect time. Okay. Before we play that next video, I just want to point out that that's the right way to deal with tragedies that have been following you and bring them back out to help other people rather than just speaking about them from the point of view of yourself. So I want to commend Ilhan of taking these attacks against her and the trauma I'm sure she's gone under and continuing, at least right now in this interview, to speak about it in a way that is trying to protect other people and not just talking about it. So I appreciate that.
Again, yeah, well done. And again, also huge shout out to Case Study QB. We're going to play that second video. Really great stuff that he's doing. Be sure to follow him on Twitter. Let's play that video.
Violence, and Republicans can't just wave a magic wand and attack the Black Congresswoman.
It was notable that there's been a fundraising effort using you. The fundraising people complaining the Democrats are trying to expel me from Congress. And it was interesting, the Democrat behind her there is you, not, Speaker Pelosi or House leadership. I think everyone understands what that's about. I guess my question is this. There's this dynamic that functions now where she will use this attention, right? And this sort of oppositional to fundraise. Like, do you think about breaking out of this cycle and how to do it, if there's any way out of it?
No, I mean, the Republicans truly have lost their way. Their party is destroyed. Their base now is conspiracy theorists.
My question is, at what point did the Republicans know their way? Like, that's legitimately, like when she's saying the Republicans have lost their way. Since when? Since when Mitch McConnell was in charge of the Senate? Before that? When have the Republicans ever known their way, and when is that? And what has that way been? Is that when they were just stock market's good, anything that fights bad? Is that what? Chat. What comments? What do you mean? What do you take out of that? Anyway.
Yeah, that's kind of an odd statement to make.
Yeah.
It's cowards. It's opportunists. It's grifters, and sadly.
Okay. Well, first of all, because we are fair and balanced at Harlan's Me, I'm going to apply this to both parties. But when has Congress not been grifters and cowards and what was the other one she said? Whatever it is that applied.
But hold on, because I think we'd add more to it. Because look, I mean, let's face it, we're still waiting for our stimulus checks. We are still waiting for Medicare for all. We're still waiting for a bailout. We're still waiting, making sure that people are not being evicted from their homes. I mean, Congress has a long, sad history of disappointing their people, their constituents. And this is a problem that's not only a Republican problem, but a Democratic problem. And we have Democratic and Republican lawmakers who are bought and sold by the top 1%, hedge fund managers, Wall Street executives, big banks, major corporations, the top 1%. They're the ones that control our Congress. And they've always been like this because you could thank the Supreme Court for passing, Citizens United and McCutcheon's decision.
And even on this, it's like, how are the Democrats not lost? They forgot how to count. They don't know the difference between 2,000, 1,400, and 1,000.
Yep, agreed. Let's play the rest of that video.
They're becoming the Looney Tunes. These are people who we can't take serious. They're not here to do the people's business. They are here to just be obstructionists and make a mockery
was she talking,
of not just our government.
Was she talking about Republicans or Democrats? I couldn't tell because it applied equally to both.
But our country.
There is, of course, this individual congresswoman who's the subject of this question today in this House Rules Committee attracted attention. She ran because of this ad with her with a gun next to you and other Democratic lawmakers. And, it just seems to me that and you tweeted about this, about feeling like this sense of threat or menace. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez talked about this. We saw it embodied in January 6th. This is not theoretical. But just the degree to which the idea of physical intimidation, the threat of violence, of menace, of armed people.
Again. So I want to remind everyone that we've been covering the news for a number of years. And I can tell you, if you haven't seen our previous coverage, and this is your first time tuning in, that a lot of Americans experience very heinous levels of violence every day. Whether it be through citizen to citizen, whether it be from police, whether it be from taxes or fees or something that the courts have involved people in.
Or at their work.
And wage theft, which is enormous. This is... I don't like the partisanship nature of the way that this entire thing is being discussed. I get it. Democrats have the perfect media coverage and the perfect way that this has all been played, that they can go after everyone the way that they are. But it's just an excuse. I mean, it's like it can be real, and when they say it, and it doesn't really matter to me because I'm thinking about the people that don't have the ability to go on CNN or have millions of followers on social media or money to hire lawyers when they're abused by police, or when all the things that we've ever talked about, that Lainey's talked about with food stamps and just people being screwed over. But it's this nice news cycle that we get to run through when all of a sudden these congressional and senators are threatened. And now it's the big news cycle. It's all about security. Oh my God, how did we not see this coming? And going back to Ali's statements earlier, this is not a just happened. Where did this come from? This is years, this is decades of buildup that have led to this. And I want to remind people the old adage: the people do not raid the palace unless the army lets them. The reason that people were able to get into Congress is because the government did not protect Congress and actually let people in. Yeah. And I would say that any large protests that would have happened when Trump was president, when there were a lot of progressives or Democrats out there, the same thing had happened. I'm not sure I would expect that different of a result. So we can focus and keep talking about Congress people being traumatized by things that happen to regular people every day, or like I complimented Ilhan doing at the beginning of this segment, we could take that experience, make it real, connect it to the people you're supposed to be serving, and put laws together to make the country actually safer, actually more secure. And you can start by giving people $2,000.
Agreed.
You know what makes people not violent and not as racist? When they're financially secure.
Yeah, because when you create an environment where everyone's desperate, you're going to get a lot of angry upset people, and good luck telling them to calm down. But is there any more to that video, or is that
There's
it?
a little bit more, but I think we can end it. I think
we
it's fine
can
enough.
end it there. All right,
It
so
makes the
as a
point.
final note, look, don't be surprised if there's going to be another protest happening this summer, and who knows how it's going to turn out. But I am really concerned about this super fast rush again for censorship. And again, just going back to Allie's article about, looking for, how she took apart that New York Times article for a reality czar. I mean, this is dangerous. I mean, this stuff will only, this whole idea of censoring and creating a reality czar or thought police or ministry of truth, it's only going to cause a problem to grow even worse. It's not going to solve anything.
Exactly.
It's like adding gasoline to the fire. It's not going to calm down. With that being said, we're going to move on now to our next story. But before we do,
2 super chats. By the way, guys, before we read the first super chat, as a reminder, if you're new here and you want to support us with a chat, which we always read, I guess no matter what they say, although I shouldn't say that because that's going to jinx me. What we say to do is if you go into the description down below, there's a link to something called Streamlabs. You set up an account with them. That's the same exact way. They're PayPal. The same exact way you set up one with YouTube Super Chats. Super Chats from YouTube take 30%. So if you give us $10, we get $7. However, if you go through Streamlabs, you get a really cool pop-up that'll show up with your message, and it's way cooler. I think it's cool. I think all the cool kids.
it's super awesome.
And also, but no, don't worry. If you give it anyway, you're all cool no matter what. You're just sometimes a little cooler if you do it that way, because by sending us a super chat in that fashion, we get 25% more for the same price. So you're actually giving us 25% more for the same price. So that's wonderful.
There we go. So first, let's look at this one YouTube super chat from Windy Melly, $10. Caleb Maupin said on the Convo couch that he's a New York pizza guy. Sorry. Well,
The pizza wars continue.
Here's the thing, and someone messaged a Convo couch and tell them, look, it's a scientific fact. I mean, the debate is over.
If
Chicago style pizza is superior, it's scientifically true, it's artistically true, it's economically true. It's politically true.
Yes.
I mean, look, facts are facts, and they don't care about New York style pizza's feelings. Yeah. Chicago style is superior.
And I want to remind people that I'm not saying to do anything. All right. There we go. But if you decided to go to Convo Couch's chat and respectfully just let them know continuously that Chicago Deep Dish is the only superior pizza with, of course, the hashtag Pizza Wars, and screenshot of that. I would love to, if then that just happened to end up on our Discord, I would love to laugh at that picture.
Yes.
I'm not saying to do anything. I'm just saying it's a path.
Chicago style is the best. We also got another YouTube super chat from Sports Droppings, $5. Of course, Ilhan's friends, the squad, were silent when Schumer, Clinton, etc., smeared her in her second month. Yeah, that is true. Everyone seems to forget that too. But also, we got an awesome Streamlabs super chat, $20. Phase.
Thank you so much. We play that again so people can see again that beautiful artisanal message. Look at that. That's a beautiful message, everyone.
Right. Oh, wait, it's 52, I think.
It is.
Oh my gosh.
52. Wow, thank you.
That's amazing.
Wow, I'm going blind.
It's from Thomas Scherer. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. They say, hey, HLM, sorry I missed your show last night, but in lieu of Laney's 52nd birthday, here's a $52 contribution.
Oh, that's so nice of you.
Wow, thank you.
Let Laney
Speaking
know.
truth to power and do all that we can to support independent media. Hashtag force the vote. Hashtag with that being said.
All right. Well, you know what? Again, shout out to all of our viewers and subscribers. You guys are
Amazing.
awesome.
Thank
Again,
you.
without you guys, this show would not exist. Independent media would not exist. And all of our viewers and subscribers have really done a fantastic job. But now, let's get started.
Before we go, just to remind everyone, the pizza wars never end.
Yeah, exactly. In the name of the emperor, stand with Chicago
the only
style.
time we get to a more interesting battle is when we talk about envelopment.
Okay, yes.
Okay, I'll stop.
Stop.
See, it's like everyone's
Stop.
like pizza wars. That's fine, but me talking about food classified by its level of
Stop.
development.
We
that's a bad
got a
issue.
story. We got a story. We're running a serious program here, buddy. all right. But first, let's get started with our next segment. So, As you all know, I am a supporter of free speech, and recently a lot of content creators such as Convo Couch, Nico House's channel, Mikasa Sukasa, Graham Elwood's channel, Frank Analysis, Progressive Soapbox, Ford Fischer, have all been demonetized. I want to give a quick update that, again, Ford Fischer's channel has been remonetized, but we'll pull that tweet up later. Jordan Sheridan's YouTube video coverage of the January 6th riots that happened at the Capitol are still down, and Tim Black's Facebook channel has been, or at least Facebook page has been demonetized. I am against this. I believe that all these content creators should be protected. I believe all these content creators should make sure that their videos are safe, and that more importantly, YouTube needs to change its policies, because each one of those channels, and look, everyone has different opinions about hosts or channels or whatever. The point is, they have people that they're taking care of. They have team members they have to take care of. They have content they have to upload. They have shows they have to run. And in being involved in independent media, let's really address one true issue, and that is independent media is doing something that corporate media is not covering and not doing. Independent media is out there speaking to activists, community organizers, covering stories of corruption and abuse of power. All of these channels should not be at risk of losing everything. And yet they are. But again, at least one outlet, and I've been looking around, but so far Fox News, of all places.
Well, it makes sense. It's like Fox News is always like, oh, progressives are fighting Democrats. Let's make that happen more. It's their own selfish interest, but it still sadly makes it so that if you want to get progressive information, you have to go to Fox News, because that's weird.
Yeah, somehow that happened. So let's cover this article. First, again, it starts off, it is difficult for an independent journalist to remain afloat in a field dominated by large corporations with hundreds of staffers and deep bank accounts. Gee, Fox News, the pot calling the kettle black. They often rely on social media platforms to promote their work and gain exposure. Video journalist Ford Fischer documents political events, particularly protests and rallies, shares them on his various platforms, and frequently licenses footage to major news outlets. I sometimes jokingly say that it's the C-SPAN of political activism, Fischer says of his news outlet News to Share, which he co-founded in 2014. A Washington, D.C. local, Fischer found himself amid a sea of Trump supporters on January 6th at the National Mall, capturing their reaction to a giant screen that displayed then President Donald Trump's fiery speech ahead of the Capitol Hill riot. Fischer identifies as nonpartisan and shared the raw footage on his platforms. Like the vast majority of his videos, the footage was not edited, provided no commentary. In fact, the BBC licensed the video for a docuseries. However, on January 24th, the day before the House Representative delivered its article of impeachment against Trump to the Senate, YouTube removed the video for allegedly violating its terms of service. Same thing happened to Jordan Sheridan, except Jordan Sheridan's channel did not get demonetized. YouTube went on to say to him, or message him, we want to let you know that our team reviewed your content, and we think it violates our spam deceptive practices and scam policy. YouTube wrote an email to News to Share. We realize this may be disappointing news, but it's our job to make sure that YouTube is a safe place for all. So stupid. I remember when YouTube used to be fun. The email, which Fischer published on Twitter the next day, then cited a policy stating content that advertises false claims that widespread fraud, errors, or glitches change the outcome of the U.S. 2020 election is not allowed on YouTube. And again, let's scrolling down further. After Fischer drew attention to YouTube's allegations, the Google-owned video giant doubled down. This video was removed because it didn't include countervailing views or sufficient context of the claims made in the footage. Again, as the article covered earlier, no commentary, not saying anything, and the British Broadcasting Corporation licensed that video for a docuseries. YouTube, hire people. Stop hiring robots and bots. Your algorithm doesn't work right. I mean, you do realize that you guys are acting like fools. YouTube responded to Fischer, as videos can be embedded across the web, we only allow this content to remain on the platform if there's appropriate context within the video itself. If you see similar footage on the platform, it's likely because it includes countervailing views or sufficient context, as opposed to just the raw footage itself, that statement added. Fischer immediately pushed back, pointing out that his video can still be seen on Odyssey, provided context was the title, crowd reacts to Trump January 6th speech ahead of Capitol insurgency and cited several networks whose live streams of Trump's Save America rally remain active on YouTube. On Wednesday, YouTube escalated its action by demonetizing Fischer's entire channel, citing harmful content despite approving the video for monetization on January 8th. Demonetization is a common term for stripping a content creator of their ability to make money from ads provided by, in this case, YouTube. This happened to us at Heartlands Media between March of 2020 all the way up to September of 2020. We really almost lost everything, and it was a nightmare. Me and Daniel were stressed out of our minds. We had no idea how we were going to get out of it. We even rented our studio space. We lost 8 clients because of this pandemic and so much more. So
it was a wonderful position where everything was basically getting destroyed at once.
It was nothing but continuous gut checks. Honestly, it defies logic and reason why they would have behaved like this. Whatever their reasoning is, there's obviously discrimination against independent creators, and that's a fact, and that impacts a lot of content creators, just not independent media, but a lot of content creators on YouTube that have to deal with competition from corporations. Because I remember a time on YouTube when, content creators were on the front page, not just stuff from Jimmy Kimmel or ABC or CBS or NBC or CNN. I remember when it was the people. Remember YouTube, it's the people that made you who you are.
And remember, we also covered when this was all happening. This all happened because a lot of the mainstream outlets saw the power that YouTube had over its growing news influence, and so what they were doing was trying to do everything they could to destroy YouTube, and eventually a deal was made where all the news channels would get a home here on YouTube, and they would get prioritized in every way, shape, or form and be given the default support on everything, and that caused a peace between them because they now have a home here. But that's why all the mainstream outlets are growing and the default, and we no longer have creators in the news trending or anywhere.
Again, I want to just start scrolling ahead. So let's start scrolling down to this other area. Despite the problems Fischer's had with other tech giants, because his Facebook page was also taken down as well, YouTube continues to be his biggest obstacle. YouTube used to be for independent content creators primary, right? I remember that. Don't worry, Fischer. You're not alone. You're not senile. I know too, but I remember it, so you're not crazy. FaZe, Daniel, you guys remember when YouTube used to be for independent creators, right? FaZe is shaking his head. Daniel? Yeah. All right. See, there we go. It used to be about democratizing everything. Everybody has a voice. That was the idea of YouTube. That's what I love about YouTube. That's why I like it still, at least for that principle, Fischer tells Fox News. It seems like YouTube has basically started to be a platform for the corporations that you could watch on cable TV anyway. And they've been doing that. They have acknowledged that they're squeezing down the amount of viewership that goes into independent creators, he adds. The way they would describe it is that they're shifting viewership towards reputable sources, the same reputable sources that led us to the war in Iraq.
And also another reminder on that and how this all works. I've heard, and this is not confirmed, but this is what I've heard, that the CPM for mainstream media is 40.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. And the way that YouTube, to go to what Kid's saying and break that down a little more into something that makes a little more sense of why they're doing it that way, YouTube is terrified of mainstream media like they used to do, like when they attacked PewDiePie and such, just making up things that drop their share price, drop their advertising rates. So in order to placate them, they say, okay, corporate media is trusted here's the thing that they don't tell you about the trusted partners. Trusted from the point of view of advertisers, because they're already established, they already have TV, they already have all of that set up. It's good. And independent creators, they're more of a risk. They're creative, they don't owe their allegiance to people, they're not tied down the same way corporations do, so they might do some stuff, which means they're not worth as much to advertisers because they're more risky, and therefore because these new channels of corporate media are less of a risk, they're more valuable to sell ad space on, which means it's worth more to YouTube to sell that ad space, which means they get a bigger cut. So again, it all comes down to financial incentive.
Yep. And again, the article goes on to say, and that's their way of saying, we've given priority to mainstream media when you search for stuff. But I think that the fact that major news outlets can live stream the same things that I filmed and mine gets deleted and and dares get ads put on it. Well, I think that indicates to me YouTube is serving corporations rather than small businesses and individual users. Fischer is alluding to Project Owl, launched by YouTube's parent company, Google, in 2017. Project Owl modified algorithms to amplify what it describes as reliable sources or authoritarian pages and rank them higher in search results in order to combat the spread of misinformation. Matt Taibbi, an independent journalist who advocated on Fischer's behalf on Twitter, tells Fox News that YouTube is doing now more drastic by making even raw footage from independent outlets off limits or taboo, even if the same footage was used by mainstream media outlets. Again, this ridiculous favoritism, which I despise. I despise favoritism. The clear goal is to disempower alternative media, Taibbi says. The end game here is to force all content to be shifted through the filter of larger outlets. And again, I'm not going to watch CNN or MSDNC. There we go. Taibbi, who launched his own newsletter on the subscription-based platform Substack, argues that America is moving away from free press to a journalistic licensing system operated by big tech, and that you can only do the job if you're part of a larger structure, which is, again, we found out what it means to be a TV anchor way back in Harlan's Media's early radio days, and it's a nightmare, and I would never put myself through that grueling system. Their goal is to make the press part of the political establishment rather than check on it. Now, I also wanted to scroll this down even further. So again, Matt Taibbi also goes on, or Fischer goes on to say, Fischer is one of several independent media journalists who have been punished in some form or another by YouTube. The left-leaning media outlet, the Convo Couch, was similarly demonetized for harmful content. When pressed by co-founder Jonathan Marcia to reveal which videos specifically violated the platform's policies, Team YouTube replied, "We can't share which specific videos were harmful," which means they don't have enough people to look into it, so they're just going to just shoot and pray, and that's it. Spray and pray.
What they're looking for usually in the way YouTube works is they're looking for tags and certain names, specifically titles, thumbnails, descriptions. They look for keywords. Then they check the video, usually the front of the video, for certain speech terms. And if you're doing other stuff as well, like cursing in a video, which just kind of raises up this sort of latent bar, they'll make some point of going, "Hey, can't do that. Machine said so."
Yep. And again, going further into this article, YouTube expects us to take a guess at which ones of our 1,000 videos violated their policy. Marcia tells Fox News, YouTube expects us to censor ourselves while we strongly believe that none of our videos violate their harmful content policy. They are purposely being ambiguous about what exact content violates their policies. The intricacies of how content is regulated is to be discussed and debated, but we hold that free speech is free speech unless it incites violence. Marcia and the Convo Couch co-hosts Afira, Isabella, and Craig Pasta Jadula added, talking about election fraud is not inciting violence. Filming history on January 6, 2021 is not inciting violence. Filming with or without commentary of armed conflict is not inciting violence. The Convo Couch hosts tell Fox News they are considering litigation in response to YouTube's actions, as they should, because this is a nightmare. If all their stuff is demonetized, no one should go through this. We went through it. It was a nightmare. While much of the discussion of online censorship was dominated by right-wing politics, conservatives aren't the only ones feeling the wrath of big tech. The progressive media outlet Status Coup has clashed with YouTube in recent weeks. YouTube had removed a live stream of a peaceful gun rights rally that took place on January 18th, but the video was restored after Status Coup co-founder George Sheridan vocally protested the decision on Twitter. On Tuesday, YouTube removed Status Quo's live stream of the Capitol Hill riot, alleging the footage is advancing claims of election fraud. No, it does not. No, it does not. God almighty. That should not happen to anybody. The footage, which was captured by Status Quo cameraman John Fernia, was licensed by several news organizations, including CNN, MSNBC, NBC News, CBS News, ABC, The New York Times, Washington Post, and the Associated Press. Sheraton called YouTube's actions alarming and dangerous and is urging mainstream media outlets to condemn the onslaught of censorship against leftist channels. It's part of a broader trend by Google, YouTube to purge their platform of independent and progressive channels their advertisers don't view favorably. They are doing it under the guise of removing extremist right-wing content. Sheraton tells Fox News it's puzzling to see our historic footage that has been used by dozens of domestic and foreign media networks removed when we were covering the events. Not advocating or advancing false claims of election fraud, it's corporate censorship of YouTube and other platforms to appease corporate advertisers. Status Quo has not been demonetized by YouTube, at least for now, and no one should go through this. But hold on, it's just not Status Quo. However, other left-wing YouTube channels have been demonetized this week. The Progressive Soapbox, hosted by Jamal Thomas, The Political Vigilante, which is hosted by commentator Graham Elwood, good friend of the show. Frank Analysis, another good friend of the show, again, just started his YouTube channel, whose host is alleging that the money that his audience donated to the show through YouTube Super Chat feature was not only blocked from reaching him, but was never refunded to the donors.
Yeah, no, YouTube just keeps it when that happens.
Yeah. And this is from Frank Analysis. And I'm sorry that this is happening to this kid. No one should go through this. It makes it impossible for people to become successful if they're starting from scratch, Franco from Frank Analysis tells Fox News. Me and other content creators that were demonetized deserve to be remonetized, as he should, and we should all be screaming from the rooftop for them to be remonetized. When asked about potential solutions to social media censorship, News to Share's Fischer expresses skepticism that the government is the answer. Instead, he believes enough people need to speak up so that YouTube and other platforms feel that it's going to damage their business if they demonetize them. Again, ending this, I just want to pull up this tweet from Ford Fischer's Twitter account. Can we pull that up? Because there should be a happy ending here, or at least somewhat. Thank you, Team YouTube, for remonetizing my channel. It's funny how it notifies me as if I'm new. This is a step. Could you also restore my historical footage of January 6th? B, review other video takedowns and demonetization such as Status Coup and the Convo Couch and more. And then I also want, again, there's the image there, but I also want to pull up this other tweet from Jordan Sheridan. Let's get that image up. Again, it's been 3 days now, and I can't see too much into it. Okay, thank you so much, FaZe. 3 days later, still no response from YouTube, Team YouTube, for pulling down Status Quo's historic footage shot by John Faria photo from Capitol attacks. This is absurd censorship. Let's just drop the facade and call YouTube what it is. YouTube. And again, this should not happen to anybody. And I am really upset and frightened about this potential dark path that we are on. Here's the deal. And this is how I'm going to want to end it. And I want to give Daniel the final word on this too. Number one, Mikasu Casa, Convo Couch, Frank Analysis, Progressive Soapbox, Graham Elwood Show, Political Vigilante. All these channels should be remonetized. Tim Black's Facebook page, while it's something different, should be remonetized. Jordan Sheridan's videos should all be restored. All right. Now his channel's not being demonetized, and neither is Tim Black's for the moment. But none of these content creators should be at risk of censorship. I am for free speech, and we here at Heartlands Media stand in solidarity with all those content creators. No one should go through this, and now more than ever, we need independent media. Daniel is the final word.
Yeah, I feel like this is stuff we've talked about this for years, and I'm glad we've kept the position we've had, because it now seems that all the people that disagreed with us, sent us messages saying that we made the wrong call, are now all on our side. So I hope that everyone gets their stuff back as they rightfully should. The videos that have been taken down should be put back up, and everyone that happens to will finally stay on the right side of history on censorship from now on, and stop with the crap that they've been doing that has been against us. And I don't just mean the people that have been taken down. I mean just in general. This is exactly why we do not allow or want censorship of anyone, because scope creep is a really powerful weapon.
Yep. And again, because like these content creators have been speaking truth to power, but yet ever since the Capitol Hill riots, there's been so many people in the political establishment and regular people as well that are cheering for censorship. It's going to impact everybody. Everyone's going to be on the chopping block. But with that being said, we're going to move on now to our next story. But before we do,
we got a bunch of super chats.
We do. So first, let me acknowledge the first YouTube super chat from Zawaldo, $5. Nevada bill will allow tech companies to create governments. Check it out, please. I've been made aware of this situation before we started the show, but again, I will be checking out those articles as well. Let me just keep scrolling down, and I think that's about it. And
all right, then we got some
Streamlabs. Wait. Hold on.
Thank you to everyone Streamlabbing us.
Hold on. AOC said this to me. Kit Cabello is a danger to democracy. Well, newsflash, AOC, that's not the first time someone has ever said that to me. So you know what? Get in line and join the club.
That's probably a weak defense. Hey, you're saying I'm bad for America? Well, other people have said that too.
Yeah, why not? Come on, have at it. Hey, FaZe, we got some Streamlabs super chats. Who sent us some awesome Streamlabs? I think we got
this one's from AOC.
Oh my God, $5. What?
Man. She says, listen, I wish I could help. If only I had a platform that I could use to influence and push for real change. or if I was a representative. Then I could really make a difference. If only. Sorry, guys. And also, the Ministry of Truth is to protect you.
First of all, this is a pro-Imperium of Man studio, and the Emperor protects us here, not the Ministry of Truth.
I gotta say,
wait.
it's nice to have parody accounts in chat. It's really livened the place up.
Okie dokie, AOC.
I would just say, just keep it in moderation, because you are moderates after all.
And we have another one from Anna Jackson who says, as I said yesterday, how do YouTubers push Biden left if they get censored? Stupidest gameplay ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, we said, Amber, you guys were there when the primary was happening. We were very clear on why we acted and took the positions on Biden and on Bernie and on third parties the way we did. And a lot of you guys were like, we understand your logic and we're with you. And a lot of people outside, especially on Twitter, were like, how can you guys ever make these points? This is barbaric. And, here we are.
We also got another Streamlabs super chat. FaZe, who's that from?
Space Junkie says the Australian government is pushing for a law to make Google pay for Australia media content. Google is threatening to pull search services from Australia. We need more countries to take the same action and push back against big tech.
Yeah, we did coverage on that, I think, 2 weeks ago. We did a story. You can go check it out somewhere in the last 7 to 14 days.
Check it out after the show.
Yeah, it's but we covered that and we agree it's a really big issue. It's also a little funny.
Yeah. It's
But
crazy.
it's a big
It's
issue.
madness.
Yeah.
Madness and stupidity. But with that being said, drink. Daniel, you got a story for the people. What is going on?
Okay, so remember we had a president before Biden, whose name was Trump. That was it's been so long. I'm sorry, guys. So one thing that I liked about his presidency, Strocker. Oh man, I'm waiting for the Democrats with sniper rifles to go. He can't do anything good. He was actually quite good on foreign policy and not expanding our wars. Now, he did a lot of stuff in that bubble that was really terrible, but he didn't expand us into more wars like Obama did. And that's one thing I was actually pretty pleased with, is that we didn't expand who we were bombing all that much. And in fact, we somewhat reduced it, even though we sort of became a little more barbaric when we did. It's America. Biden has now gone in the opposite direction almost immediately. We've increased troop presence in Syria. We've added troop presence in Yemen. And now, as we're going to see, I believe in this video, we're now looking to ironically tear up foreign agreements on peace like Trump did with Iran. We're now doing in Afghanistan. So let's see that.
Ask you about your latest piece in the Post. You say that Afghanistan is Biden's first big foreign policy headache. What do you mean by that? And what are the choices on the table for President Biden?
So Biden inherited a peace agreement that was signed in February of last year by Trump's envoy, Zalmay Khalilzad, that calls for all U.S. troops, and the number is down to just 2,500, to leave Afghanistan May 1st. And a study group headed by the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Joseph Dunford, as respected a general as we've had, has just issued a report this week saying essentially that if we pull those troops out on May 1st as planned, because the Taliban has gotten so much stronger, the result is going to be civil war. And he's laying the question as starkly as he can before Biden. If you pull out, this country is basically going to go down the drain. It's going to see a reestablishment of al-Qaeda safe havens. Mr. President, do you really want to do that? Biden is the person in the Obama administration who was most skeptical about putting more troops into Afghanistan in the first place. He was against it. Obama ended up agreeing. Biden didn't. So this will be especially painful for Biden. He's going to have a lot of the military saying, sir, you can't. We're going to have a rolling, cascading defeat of an ally if you do it. But that decision's coming up. It's got to be made May 1. And I think in the Biden White House already, after the messages I got after the column, people are really thinking hard about it.
So there you have it. I don't know if Trump was just memeing when he made the the pullout date and that when he did, when the next president would have to take care of it. But maybe we'll be in Afghanistan another 20 years, everyone, because there's mining interests and we got to like keep Iran in check, and like Pakistan's a thing that exists. So we might just mindlessly keep killing people in a region that doesn't want us there. That it's just a mess, and America is going to keep spending money on bombs and fuel and vehicles and flesh to blow up people that herd sheep that think that we're invading their country, because we are. And
is this? Hold on, wait. Is this our longest? I think this has been our longest occupation and campaign, because 2001 is when we.
It's already been a few years.
It's been 20 years. 20 years now. A whole 20 years.
There's already been stories of people who enlisted and went to Afghanistan, came back, got married, had kids, and those kids are now going and fighting. It's the longest war we've ever been in, and we're expanding because again we've also intensified in Syria, and now we're also tearing up a withdrawal agreement that we made with them, which I thought was an issue when Trump did that with Iran, and we yelled at Trump when he did it then as well. And we're going to do the same thing with Biden because we're consistent. This is not good. And remember, every bomb that's dropped, every mile that's driven is a meal that won't be served to a kid, is health care for someone that they will not get, is a vaccine that someone will not be able to afford. It is bread and bombs, and we are choosing to functionally focus on bombs.
It's hard to really do a follow-up to that, and that's knowing this. We have money for endless wars. Trillions of dollars spent. I just want to remind everyone a story that happened last summer in 2019, or I guess 2 summers ago in 2019, when we covered it at your old place, Daniel, when there was that escalating conflict with Iran, when it looked like we were probably going to go to war with Iran. And we had $100 million drone fly into Iranian airspace,
right?
and it was shot down by a rocket that cost $30,000. Now, again, look, if there was ever to be military conflict with the United States and Iran, it's quite clear the United States is going to win it. But dare I say, at what cost? Because a $30,000 rocket shot down a $100 million drone. That $100 million drone, I don't know how many student loans that $100 million could have forgiven.
It's a lot.
I don't know how many people would be able to use it for universal basic income. I don't know how many people could use
About
it.
2,000 college 4-year scholarships.
Really?
For one bomb, for one drone.
For 2,000 scholarships? For $100 million? $100 million?
I'm just back of the envelope.
All right, you're back envelope. For the record.
So I'm assuming $40,000.
If you hold on, let's get the audience.
It depends on where you're at.
Let's get the audience in on this. All right. So this $100 million drone that was shot down by this $30,000 rocket, an Iranian rocket, right? Okay. Homework time for you guys.
You could we could say, I think that's fair. You could pay for all the tuition for 4 years in a mid-large university in state.
Right. So all you people watching, here's your little homework assignment. You're gonna figure out $100 million. How many student loans? I mean, how many people would be able to afford college at a university in your said state? So you're gonna be working on your said state. And a college of your choosing, how many people would be able to use that $100 million to go to school for free?
And then let us know in the comments.
Yeah, let us know in the comment section, because this video is going to be clipped. So who says Hard Lens Media doesn't interact with its audience or give you guys some interesting questions to think about? But with that being said, we're going to move on now to our next story. But before we do, I just want to acknowledge everyone that's in the live stream chat. Shout out to the wonderful, incredible Mona Carmona. Shout out to the wonderful, outstanding Ali Alexandria, who did a fantastic article earlier in the show. Shout out to Ayana, Gamer for Life, E. Heller, Fred, Edward. You guys are doing a fantastic job moderating, and I think AOC has left the building. But with that being said, I believe I have a story for the people, and I'm going to take you guys back in time.
What is going
on? All right, so this is an article. Well, actually, first, shout out to Roger Meadows. He gave us a couple of YouTube super chats, and he messaged me earlier today and let me know of this little town in Tennessee. And I'm going to probably say it wrong, but it's called Chattanooga, Tennessee. Daniel, do you know anything about this location in Tennessee?
I know it from when FDR was dealing with it with what's the exact one? The WPA.
Okay. Well, Daniel, there's a couple other things too that all of you should know what's going on. This little place, Chattanooga, Tennessee, has the best internet in the entire United States, period. But why should a small city boost better broadband than Manhattan or San Francisco, and yes, even Chicago?
Well, they probably have a better private corporation running it. That's my guess.
Not really. Wrong. According to a survey of 175,000 people conducted by Consumer Reports, Chattanooga's municipally owned telecoms provider.
Wait, you're saying the government owns it and it's working
municipally owned. What? You're crazy. The Electric Power Board of Chattanooga, the EPB, received top marks for value, speed, and reliability. Only Google Fiber comes close to matching EPB for value, and even then it failed to live up to the local services speed and reliability ratings. So how did the fourth largest city in Tennessee, perhaps best known for the 1941 Glenn Miller song, Chattanooga, Choo Choo?
You know what I'm going to say so far on this?
Managed to create the best publicly owned ISP in the U.S. And how has such a small company been able to deliver unprecedented 1
terabyte?
One GDPS.
Oh, gigabyte.
Yeah, one gigabyte download speed.
That's so huge. What's the upload? I care. Hey, at Hard Lens Media, we care almost exclusively about upload. Do we have a? Is it a? I forget the exact mirrored up and down.
Hold on. I think I'll probably get to it. But
100 gigabytes up or 100 megabytes up would still be acceptable. I'll take it.
Well, again, so the fact that the EPB can offer speeds of 1 gigabytes is remarkable when you consider that the average U.S. download speed is 25.86 megabytes.
Pathetic.
That is really slow. And my old internet was a lot slower than that. Daniel remembers.
I remember.
Patrick Farm remembers.
I would be like, hey, Kit, can you do this thing? He's like, nah, I don't got internet.
Yeah. All right. But don't worry. I fixed that problem. No, now I got fast internet. But
now he's streaming every night from his bedroom.
Yep. Came wrong. Who says we don't have fun here?
That's it, guys. That's a good show.
All right, bye, Daniel. Bye. All right. In fact, the U.S. has only the 20th fastest broadband. Oh my God, we are behind. Hold on. Here's the thing. In fact, the U.S. has the 20th fastest broadband in the world, behind Romania, Latvia, and Jersey. No, not the state famed for reality TV show Jersey Shore, but one of the small islands between Britain and France. So we're behind Jersey, an island between Britain and France. 20th place. To understand why EPB and Chattanooga are racing ahead with internet speeds 4 times faster than the national average, we need to look underground, specifically to the wires that carry data between our home networks and the ISP servers. By focusing on a relatively small community, Chattanooga only has around 180,000 inhabitants, of which close to 100,000 are EPB consumers. EPB has been able to invest heavily in infrastructure. In 2010, it became the first ISP to give fiber optic connections, something Daniel has talked about a lot, to an entire community. These connections replaced the traditional copper wiring originally designed to exclusively handle telephone calls. Fiber optic cables transmit data using photons that travel at the speed of light rather than electrons, as with copper wires that can't even manage 1% of that speed. The infrastructure boost has meant that everyone, rather than certain blocks or districts at a time, has been able to benefit from increased speeds. Moreover, because EPB is literally owned by the city itself, and there's no reason for it to invest and there's no reason for it not to invest in its infrastructure. After all the citizens will see the benefits of its work. They're likely to attract and retain customers. So what can other cities learn from Chattanooga? Municipally owned utilities are not a new idea. In fact, EPB itself was founded way back in 1935 to provide telephone communications to Chattanooga. However, most of the municipality or publicly owned utilities in the U.S. focuses around supporting telephone lines or providing water, gas, and electricity. Internet connectivity, on the other hand, directly grew out of the telephone companies such as Verizon, AT&T, and Comcast. I hate Comcast. Offering it as an additional service back when it was a nice to have, not the need to have it as it is today. Internet access is now recognized as a human right, and ensuring access to the best possible internet access should be priority for all communities, just like water, gas, or electricity. As such, towns, cities, and the country should be looking into creating municipally owned ISPs. However, the benefits of a publicly owned network extend beyond the do-gooder feeling of offering nice things to people. Since EPB decided to invest heavily in Chattanooga's infrastructure, the city has become something of an unlikely business hub. An independent study published.
Okay, so that's a huge thing that I really wish cities would just get, because every time this happens.
Wouldn't it be great if Chicago had something like that?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Way back, I was talking to one of the aldermen, and I was like, look, guys, you should just do a mesh network. It's the cheapest form of doing fiber. You don't have to install any lines. You make Chicago a tech hub. I don't see why this is difficult.
Well, he's probably said, you get out of here. That's too hard.
What he said, he gave me the classic, oh, that's a really good idea. I'll look into it.
Hey, I want to talk about which alderman it was.
I forget.
Oh,
I do. I mean, it's like it wasn't going anywhere. So why keep that information stored in my head?
All right.
I just remember it happened.
All right. Well, we're gonna have a lineup of aldermen. I want you to point out which alderman it was.
I'll tell you afterwards.
Okay, cool. An independent study published by the University of Tennessee noticed that EPB's new network directly led to the creation of between 2,800 and 5,200 new jobs. Furthermore, the economic benefits have earned the small city around $1 billion.
But I thought
that's a lot.
I thought the public couldn't do anything properly.
Well,
except it turns out really important.
Daniel, these are facts, and they don't care about your feelings. Okay,
I guess I'll have to change.
The fast, reliable internet has also helped lure the multinational corporations such as Volkswagen. At the moment, there are 55 municipally owned networks in the U.S. offering fiber to home connections in the United States. However, there are 19 states that actively prohibit the creation of publicly or municipally owned entities.
Thanks, Comcast and lobbyists from other things like AT&T.
Did I mention Spectrum. I hate Comcast?
Do it again. I'll take it.
I hate Comcast.
Okay.
There we go. Placing these restrictions on communities seems counterintuitive at best and downright corporatist at worst. When you look at the facts, publicly owned local companies also seem like no-brainers.
Hey, kid, I got one for you from chat.
What's up?
From our good friend Loomis. Comcast is Horus.
And he will be purged.
Okay, there we go.
And as far as I'm concerned, anyone that aligns himself with Horus is a heretic and a traitor.
There you go.
So there we go. I mean, there's no debate about it. But that's a conversation for another day, kids. Not only has EPB's rollout created new jobs, but it is now the largest taxpayer in Chattanooga, and all of the money earned by its employees get paid back into Chattanooga through taxes and purchases, helping to support and encourage local businesses. In fact, the money needed for EPB is being constructed. A new fiber network was loaned to it by Chattanooga, and all the profits the company generate go back to paying off the loan. Not a single taxpayer dollar was used for this for the scheme. Wow,
nice,
fantastic.
Sounds easy.
So again, as we mentioned above, broadband in the U.S. is on whole trash, and that's a fact. Because when I was in Japan, I was really spoiled by that internet there. I mean, that fast. Like the slowest speed was like I think 100. Yeah, I think a gigabyte up or something like that. I think that was the slowest. One person apologized for the slow speed. Like, dude.
Megabyte probably.
Yeah, dude. Like, no, 100. Come on.
This is godly.
This is godlike technology. However, fixing it presents a complex and seemingly insurmountable challenge at the national level. One of the biggest challenges is simply the size of the U.S. and the effect it has on population density. Sure, it would make sense for the federal government to install fiber optic cables in big cities if they don't already have them. But what would it do about states like Wyoming, in which all bar one of the counties has a population density of less than 20 people per square? Well, still do it anyways. I mean, come on. Another big obstacle is the reluctance of politicians to spend taxpayer dollars on something that's already being provided, no matter how poorly, by private companies. They wouldn't want to appear anti-business now, would they? One of the oft-neglected issues with internet reform is the lobbying power of big telecom companies. We don't want to sound all big tech conspiratorial here at TechCo, because simply that's nonsense. But seeing that adverts paid for by Comcast and AT&T under the guise of Tennessee Cable Telecommunications Association in the run-up to EPB starting the fiber rollout, it really does make you wonder whether politicians would risk losing their donations. Again, we got to get rid of money in politics, all right? Again, get money out of politics, get rid of money in politics. We got to get rid of Citizens United and McCutcheon's decision. The adverts from 2009 claimed that the EP rollout would cost taxpayers money. It didn't. It also warned against repeating the Memphis mistake, which involved the Memphis Light, Gas, and Water, another publicly owned utility trying to construct similar fiber internet infrastructure in Memphis in 1999, also known as Network. However, by 2007, the plan had failed. Unlike the EPB, the Network plan was backed by private investors who wanted to see a profit within 5 years, which that's not what happens in publicly owned things. When a monumental infrastructure project failed to deliver it, they removed their funding and the MLGW was forced to sell at a loss. The money it had raised from Memphis simply vanished back into investor pockets, and again, none of this was the case with EPB. So again, I want to focus a little bit more on this. You guys can check out the second follow-up article on this. And this goes ahead and talks about if the internet was a utility, could more cities provide it? And this is an article from 2020, and it talks about really what's happening in that area of Tennessee and how a lot of people in that community are using it. You could check out that full article in the show notes below, but we are running short on time. So Daniel, I want to get your commentaries on this article from 2018. And again, there's a follow-up article from 2020. So this thing's still around.
I don't have much to add. I think that this is a thing that makes a lot of sense, something that we've been calling for a while to do. I think everyone should. We just ourselves need to have a big enough amount of infrastructure ourselves to push people to want it. I think if enough people realized that this could happen and it was feasible and they wouldn't get screwed over and they'd pay less money and get better service, why not? Yeah. Why not have really good connectivity? So one of the things that's indicative. You know what we have to do? We have to put together a study showing that for every megabit up download speed or upload speed in an area, some amount of money is generated. As soon as we do that, all of a sudden, all these people are going to go, oh, yeah, that seems reasonable.
And again, I'm seeing a lot of the chat really talk about what's happening again with the fact that the internet that there's a public utility there. Look. You know, I believe that I believe the internet should be a public utility. I also believe that YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter should all be public platforms.
And it's either the companies, or I think it's also fair to just make them operate in such a way that it's functioning on public rules.
Now again, this one town isn't the only place that has it. There's other places in the United States that do have it, but it's not at the state level at this time being. But I mean, again, this is something that everyone should embrace, because I'm pretty sure all of us, especially now that we're still in lockdown and there's still remote learning and remote business meetings happening, we need fast, reliable internet. And quite clear, Comcast can't follow through with that. Sorry about that. I had to yell at Comcast because I hate them. But it's quite clear that they can't follow through with it, and we need to start looking at alternative means. And I want to give a shout out to Roger Meadows. Thank you for bringing this to my attention. You guys can check out both the articles in the show notes and description box below. It's probably when this video is clipped, you have to just check it out on our live stream. But with that being said, Daniel, you have a story for the people. What is going on?
Okay, so this is something that we did a story on a little bit ago, and I wanted to follow up on because it's very important, although it's not something that I think a lot of Americans can do a lot about, but for especially our foreign audiences, you probably know a lot about this because it's probably being told to you, and it's obviously being completely ignored here in the U.S., but Indian farmers are still protesting. They're still out there. They're still fighting for their rights, and the Indian government really doesn't give a crap. So let's talk about it. Into their sixth straight month of striking and protesting, farmers in India continue to demand the repeal of 3 recently passed agriculture bills that they believe prioritize corporate interests over their own. The protests began in August when 3 bills were first unveiled and have continued to grow exponentially as the bills were passed in September. The government has repeatedly refused to grant the demands of farmers and agriculture unions of subsequent meetings. The protest at its core reflects global issues of workers' rights and labor regulations, and the Indian government's treatment of protesters has begun to veer dangerously into human rights violation territory, which of course no one cares about in this world today. So if they go in that direction, I don't see anyone stepping up. But it still has not been covered widely outside of India, even as some people around the world have hosted their own protests in solidarity. And just by foot traffic in terms of the protests is, one of the largest protests ever in history by humans, which I don't know why we're not talking about it more. That changed, however, when the peaceful protests turned violent at the end of January. On January 26th, India's Republic Day, farmers began hosting a planned rally, drove their tractors into Delhi's city center, and stormed the capital's historic Red Fort, where they clashed with police armed with tear gas, batons, and assault rifles. Sounds like America. According to the BBC, 1 protester died and more than 300 police were injured in the clash. More than 200 protesters were subsequently detained, as were 8 working journalists, per the Human Rights Watch. in early February, and after the Indian government was reported to be restricting internet, that was the big thing that got people all into it again. That's one of the reasons I picked up this article, especially talking about the stuff we just talked about. India, when this happened, India's just like, you two provinces no longer have internet. And they just shut it all off for everyone.
Again, that's an abuse of power, and no government should do that, period.
Yeah. In the areas around the restricting internet access, and global activists like Rihanna began using their platform to signal boost the farmers' cause. As the protest nears the 6-month mark, the government shows no signs of accepting the protesters' demands and therefore has all but ensured their continued civil disobedience. Here's the primer to an ongoing conflict. Now, I want to remind people, there are a lot of farmers in India. Since it's still a developing nation, they haven't fully modernized. There are enormous, I think it's the majority, and someone can correct me in chat or over on the computer or something. There are more farmers, and I know it's like the number one job is farmer. And I think it's over half the population farms for income. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that. But this is because basically what the rules did was they took away a price floor for food costs. Also, an interesting thing to point out that goes back to rules for rulers, and it goes to farming. What must have happened is the farmer's vote is no longer necessary to the party that the Modi's running.
Now,
but, yeah, go ahead.
No, hold on, wait, because I got a question too, and maybe you could kind of elaborate a little bit on it. But with these farmers, again, like they're losing everything. Is there like an attempt by the government and local provinces to try and industrialize the areas? And
That's sort of a little of what's happening.
Okay, because then we got to talk later after the show, because that sounds very similar to a story we heard in a series that we're both following right now.
Yeah, so effectively what's happening is the rules are changing. The floor of the cost of... So if you're a farmer and you own your own land, and it's a small plot of land that you farm on, a lot of the food you grow is just to feed your family. And then the rest of it, you're hand harvesting. So think about the time that takes to do so. And even if you're expected to pay or have very, very little in costs, you don't have a lot of mechanized equipment because you don't have a plot that's large enough to do that. It's not economic to maintain mechanized equipment, and you don't have that much other stuff to go with. So the time it takes for you to go through a bushel of whatever you're harvesting is very long compared to the corporations who own a lot of land. And we've seen this in medieval transitioning to Enlightenment, transitioning to industrial era places in Europe, where corporations that buy huge plots of land have an enormous advantage by using mechanical machines to harvest an industrial, just like we have in the U.S. It's the same way that we farm in the U.S. And so when you do that, you can cut through a hectare of whatever you're growing way faster with way less money. So your costs, variable costs to harvest and produce the food is way, way less, even if you pay someone more or people more than to do it on these small farms. So when India is doing to cut their pricing, it effectively shifts the benefit over to corporations who can go, okay, the prices are lower. We're actually the ones that are lowering them because we can afford to, is our mechanized process. And what that'll do over the long time is that Indian farmers will have no one to sell to because they can always get it for cheaper elsewhere. And every time a farmer goes bankrupt, that farmland gets bought right up, and then it gets put into a large plot, and then even another industrial farm gets plopped down on there. Mm-hmm. And that's what's happening. That's what they're trying to fight against, is that transition, because that's effectively what they're doing. And so at some point, they'll have a lot less farmers and a lot more people that then are going to go into the already overcrowded cities, which is exactly what we've seen before when this sort of thing has happened. And that's why they're protesting, because they're getting screwed. And not only is their livelihood at risk, the concept of what their livelihood is and an identity that's gone back thousands of years is at risk.
Yeah. Again, this is going to be a story that we're going to be following up on as well. Again, this is very difficult to talk about because, again, we're seeing, again, people being abused and abuse of power. And sadly, this isn't the end of it. We are going to be ending this segment, but we will be going to our Patreon show very soon. I want to thank all of our moderators for joining us in the live stream chat. Shout out to Ali Alexandria. You could check out her article and check out her Substack. Shout out to the wonderful, incredible Mona Carmona. Shout out to Ayana, Fred Edward, E. Heller, and Gamer for Life. Shout out to our tech procedures insincere phase for manning the board. Shout out to Daniel Lupker for being an outstanding co-host. Shout out to all of you lovely people for joining us as well. Heartlands Media is live every Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. We are live on our Rockafin channel every Monday and Wednesday at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. Check out our fun channel, Chicago Reacts. Also, join our Discord. Follow us on Twitter. And if you want to support independent media, please consider being a Patreon supporter. Your support will help us maintain the studio, update our gear and equipment, and make sure we can work on future projects. We really thank everyone for all your support. My name is Kit Cabello, the host of Heartlands Media. Peace to you guys, and let us all do what we can to build a better future.
See you guys.